So I know every year I always say I've got the fastest, cheapest, easiest greenhouse. And I used to make them on bamboo, out of bamboo, when we lived down in central Austin a long time ago. On the south side of the house too, I butted the big end of the bamboo up against this board across the top of the house. And I just put a board up there with some nails sticking out in the end of the bamboo onto the nail, like the nail just go in the hole, and I'd push it up against the nail and bend the bamboo down. I used to make like a free greenhouse like that heated the house. But anyway, these guys, these cactus, they can get down, being a South American trichoceros, they can get down around 30. I mean, they can drop to, I've seen plants that have been kind of acclimatized to weather already, a little bit tough. I've seen them like hit in the 20 degrees range, or mid 20s maybe, just dip in there for a few hours. But if it stayed that cold, it would turn them to jelly, pretty much. And I can't do that because a lot of these guys I grew from seed, and it just ain't gonna happen. And yeah, a bunch of them are just too cool for school too. I mean, some of these, that's one of them Bridgizzi eyes, and it's got those like backwards, downward spines, and then that crested one. That's one of my favorites. But that other crested in there, the thing is like flat. It's flat, and it's got all those heads that have reverted back into normal growth, so it's just going to be a multi-head. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. This little greenhouse here, oh God help me. Okay, this is fencing like goat fencing, right? Pretty strong stuff, and it had been wrapped in two. That fencing was. This is where they're connected here. It's two pieces of fencing, and I guess they were like 5 feet tall. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. And they had been. This guy had these giant tomato cages, and I asked if I could undo his tomato cages because they were like a 3-foot circle each. Giant tomato cages. The guy grew humongous tomato plants, but he said, the boss said, yeah, go ahead and you can borrow them for the winter, and so. I thought those will arc real nice, and I can just throw my cloths and my plastic, because I do layers, I'll put down, you don't want plastic to touch the plants, so I'll put down a sheet of plastic, and then a cloth, and then another layer of plastic if it's going to get down to really cold, and then put a little heater down in there. But the way this fastened together, if it was fastened at the ground, so over here I took an old tent stake. It's one of those fiberglass tent stakes, and a little piece of a long bolt, whatever, hammered them into the ground, a little piece of rebar. I didn't even fasten that in. I just hooked it onto this little wire rack. You don't have to use wire racks like that. I just use them because, I've got these racks anyway. I ended up with some of these things left around. They were real nice to put down for those cactus to sit flat on, kind of up off the ground. But so I was fastening that fencing to the little metal things down there, just with little zip ties, right? This is like zip, 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 zip down there, fastening it to those, and then fastening it to those posts over there. And I could have put a couple other those little cheapo tent stakes or something down there holding it that. But it's like the pressure of the fence when you've got it bent like that and pushed down on there. It kind of, it gives it the real nice arc, but it kind of holds it down to the ground too. You can see this end kind of actually bends in a little bit, So, but it was kind of jiggly and everything. So I had some of these poles that I had, picked up at the thrift store. Sometimes I'd watch the thrift store for, I might buy a cheap tent if I want a whole bunch of those fiberglass poles that they put in the tent. They got a $9 tent, and there's a bag of 30 of those things or something. But anyway, these are your little metal tent poles. And I took a little big hammer and hammered that down into the dirt pretty far to to give it some stability here that way. But then I thought, well, it really needs a sideways one going at a 45 angle to really, I pounded that down in. I clipped them off up here with my bolt cutters. I guess I would have needed to saw them or do whatever, but I kind of fitted it that long and then wrapped them with tape, and that zip tied down on that white tape, and then taped over that just so it's not so sharp on my plastic. But I'll tape that a little more so it's not sharp on the plastic. But it's solid, man. It does not go sideways. And then down here at the other end, did the same deal with one pole going at a 45 like that, which you'd be surprised, since it's pounded down deep into the ground there, it does not go this way. It's not going to pull out of there real easy, and it will not push. So this thing just is like tight that way tight enough to get started. Because when you put the plastic on there and you put your rocks on the edge of the plastic, or however you got to put weights or something on the plastic. You fold the plastic down and throw some rocks up against it, and well, you could pile a bunch. If you got a lot of winter leaves, pile those up on there and then put your rocks down. Keep it real cozy in there. But so anyway, I got the sideways one to keep it going this way, and I put an angled one in. That's kind of a special pole down at that other end. I did not do this, but it only takes one. If you got it at a 45 angle going this way, then, and if it's pounded down in there, really deep, it's not going to go that way if I push on it. And then I got this guy keeping it from going sideways. So it's like 2 poles on that end, 2 poles on this end. No, yeah, correct. So it's not the same on either end, but you could do it any which way, still get that same effect. So yeah, I'll be able to come out here and throw my sheets and plastic down, and wire me a little heater. Shoot, you could probably, once you get a couple layers, you get a layer of plastic, a layer of cloth, and then another layer of plastic for that air insulation space in between your plastics. It like doubles or triples up your insulation. And then a small heater, maybe even just, it depends on your weather, a heating pad. You can get one of them little round things that keeps your coffee warm on your desktop, and just turn it on and put it in there probably if you got a small, that's what's cool about this, it's so small. So I'll put that little, I think it's like 800 watt, 600 watt, 800 watt heater that'll blow in there if it gets down to where I'm severely worried about it. But since it's so insulated like that, once you get the plastic down, and especially if you can throw some leaves around the edge, the heat that the earth is holding down in there is going to be rising up in there, and the heat that those pots have and the plants are holding is going to be kind of ambient and rising slow in there for a long time. It takes a long, hard freeze to really start to affect that ground temperature way down under the middle of there. So, and you know what? I just thought of this old, those bamboo greenhouses that I used to make. I say when I was a kid, I was in my early 20s, and I would go out there. I hooked my hose up to the bottom of the hot water heater and would run hot water, spray it around on the plastic and on the ground, and kind of spray the plants and water the plants, and that warm water in there would steam it all up and get down in the dirt and heat up the earth, and that heat would rise up. And that was so nice having that winter greenhouse hooked up to our bedroom window. We got that great oxygen air, and it heated the house in the winter too. So that was pretty cool. There's one of the tobacco starts, and it's kind of weird because it's going into winter time now, and I got the damn thing started, so I'm gonna have to take care of it all winter. But it's gonna be a big start in the spring. Oh my God! You know, because there's a lot, we get a lot of nice weather down here during the winter, even though we get terrible freezes sometimes. So that little guy, you know, he could end up being like 3 feet tall before it even goes in to the garden out there in the spring. I got about 18 more of those guys in a flat. I need to, you know, I want to grow a bunch of tobacco. Tobacco is money. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I'll let you know how this plastic goes on and how we fare this winter.